Hi everybody. So I'm going to be talking about the Enneagram personality types with the wings of some of our favorite and most popular TV sitcom characters. So if you're not all that familiar with the Enneagram, it basically breaks people up into 9 main types that are defined by a base fear and a base desire, and the character traits that go with that. And then your wing is a more specific expression of that personality. I found that a lot of people don't know what their wing is, and so I wanted to incorporate that with TV characters as a reference to maybe help it make more sense for people. So your wing number is always going to be either one above or one below your base number. For example, if you are type 1, then your wing can either be a 9 or a 2. So starting with the type 1 personality type, they're called the reformer. And the reformer's base fear is being evil or corrupt, and they desire to have integrity and morals. So the type 1 is often very principled, and they value order and self-control. They strive for excellence in everything that they do. And getting into the wings, so the type 1 wing 9 is called the idealist, and my example for this is Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. So I actually thought that Ron was an 8 for a long time because he is such a strong personality, but when I thought about it more, really his driving force is his code of ethics and his belief system, which for him is rugged individualism and his libertarianism. But he also surrounds himself with people whom he fundamentally disagrees with, like Leslie, because he appreciates the fact that they are consistent in walking out what they believe versus seeing perfectly eye to eye with him. He can also be more rigid and impatient, but he's also very gentle and considerate, and he's just more private and emotionally reserved in expressing his feelings, which is different from the wing 2. So the type 1 wing 2 is called the advocate, and my example for that is Jane from the show Jane the Virgin. So Jane is a lot more impassioned in expressing her belief systems. She cares about justice and things being fair for everyone and is more interpersonal than the wing 1. She also really values honesty, and when people are hiding things, it can be a deal breaker because she holds herself to really high standards and expects other people to follow them as well. And sometimes she kind of has to find grace for people. She's also really organized. She loves her lists and her color-coded calendar, which is very indicative of the type 1. And some other examples of 1 wing 2s are Amy Santiago from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Annie Edison from Community. So moving on to the type 2, which is called the helper. The helper's base fear is being rejected and unworthy of love, and they desire to be loved. And so the type 2 is often very empathetic and nurturing. They're giving and they're sacrificial. The type 2 wing 1 is called the servant. My example for this is Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother. So obviously the story arc of Ted's character is pursuing love, and he's often going after Robin, even though she kind of takes advantage of him. But not only is he committed in his romantic relationships, but he's also a really dutiful friend. And there's one episode where they talk about how he's always lending out his stuff to everyone and they never give it back. And so you see all the objects in people's houses and it says like property of Ted Mosby, because that's what the 2 does. And that's what Ted does, because the 2 often just drops everything if their friends need them. But he also has the idealism of the wing 1, and you can see that in his excellence in his architect career. Whereas the type 2 wing 3 is called the hostess, and my example for this is Jessica Day from New Girl. And unlike the wing 1, who's going to be doing more of the nitty-gritty and how they express their love, the wing 3 more looks at the gifts and talents that they have that they can bestow upon their loved ones and enrich their lives in that way. So you always see Jess trying to take care of everyone. She's so dedicated to her friends and to her students, but sometimes she gets too involved and they're often like resisting her, but she has that really motherly nature about her. And the wing 3 is often the more charismatic and outgoing type of person versus the wing 1. Some other examples of 2 wing 3s are Ann Perkins from Parks and Rec and actually Mac from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And now on to the type 3, which is called the achiever. Their base fear is to be without value, and they want to be seen as having value. So they're often very driven and success-oriented. They're confident, they're persuasive, they're usually take charge kind of people. So the type 3 wing 2 is called the charmer. And my favorite example of this is Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation. And she's obviously super driven, always working, always trying to get things done. But she's not just after her own success. She really uses her achievements to benefit others, which is the defining element of the wing 2. She wants to make the world a better place, but she can also have tunnel vision and do whatever she needs to do to get it done. And she can be competitive, and sometimes she'll even steamroll to get her way. And so some other examples of the type 3 wing 2 is Claire from Modern Family and Schmidt from New Girl. Now the 3 wing 4 is called the professional, and my TV reference is Rachel Berry from the show Glee. So Rachel has that dynamic pairing of the creativity and artistry of the 4, but it's propelled by the drive and ambition of the 3. So it really helps her in reaching her work and creativity goals. And so she does have the image consciousness of the 3 wing 2, but she doesn't care as much about people liking her for her personality, because for her that's kind of a losing battle. She cares more about just reaching her stardom and her work goals. And the 3 wing 4 wants to be respected for what they're able to accomplish more so than their personal qualities. But she does have some level of creative integrity and does try to look out for what's best for the Glee team versus what's best for herself, even though it is more difficult for the 3 wing 4 to not just be self-focused and just taking care of themselves. Now on to type 4, which is called the individualist. The type 4, they fear not having a unique identity and they desire personal significance. So they're the sensitive type, they're creative, introspective, and they want to be expressed. And so the type 4 wing 3 is called the aristocrat, and my TV reference is Cam Tucker from Modern Family. Cam is dramatic and emotionally fragile. He wants to show off his musical ability to people and be the star of the show. He's also aspiring to be sophisticated and a part of high society and cultured, which is in contrast to the wing 5, which is called the bohemian. The bohemian example, Phoebe Buffay from Friends, does not care about fitting into pop culture. They actually want to subvert society's expectations. So with Phoebe, you see her showing off her musical ability, but it's really not catering towards a mass audience. She's kind of looking more for that niche who can appreciate what's different about her. She wants to be defiant of authority and what everyone else is doing. She's exotic and mysterious and isn't trying to be just like anybody else. And some other type 4 wing 5s are Britta Perry from Community and also April Ludgate from Parks and Rec. And next we have the type 5, which is the investigator. The type 5's fear is being incompetent and they desire to be capable and useful. So the type 5 is usually very intelligent and tries to be knowledgeable in any subjects that are interesting to them. They are curious and often inventive and innovative. So the 5-wing 4 is called the iconoclast, and there's not a whole lot of 5-wing 4 representation in TV sitcoms that I've found, but one that has stood out is Abed from Community. And he has that wing 4 element to him that is more analytic and artistic. You especially see it in his work as a filmmaker, which is perfectionistic and has a specific vision for what he wants to create. He's also more private about his feelings, and in the ways that he excels intellectually, he lacks a lot of that emotional intelligence, which is also specific to his character, but can be a big part of the 5-wing 4. The 5-wing 6 is called the problem solver, and my TV example is kind of another extreme case in that it's Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. Sheldon is like a 5-6 in that he's purely intellectual and practical. The wing 6 usually cares more about materialism and seeking security than caring about a creative outlet. They are more committed to friends and family, but they can also be isolated because of that very scholarly pursuit. They're usually in maths and sciences, and that can lead them to kind of being patronizing. And you definitely see that with Sheldon, where it turns people off because of his like hyper intellectualism. Some other examples of 5-wing 6 are Dwight Schrute from The Office and also Ross from Friends. Okay, moving on to type 6, which is called the loyalist. The loyalist fears being unable to survive on their own, and they desire guidance and security. So they are usually very hardworking and responsible, they're cautious, and they're going to be upholding to their commitments. So moving on to the wing, the 6-wing 5 is called the defender, and my example is Gus from the show Psych. So Gus, he's a great pair for Sean because he brings that groundedness to some of Sean's recklessness, but he also kind of needs that spontaneous side that Sean brings out in him to help him take more risks. Otherwise, he would just be a pharmaceutical salesman, but he lives this life of adventure because his best friend is pulling out those traits out of him. But he's also the financially responsible one, which is characteristic of the wing 5 more than the 7. They're often gravitate towards technical expertise like laws, math, science. Another example of the 6-wing 5 is Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. So the 6-wing 7 is called the buddy, and my example is Pam Beesly from The Office. So part of why we, as the audience, get really frustrated with Pam and how long she stays with Roy when she obviously has feelings for Jim, and she stays in a career that's not really that fulfilling for her, is because of that loyal instinct that says, well, if it's not bad, then I should just stick with it. And even when she's being interviewed in the last season for another job, she's embarrassed because like her whole resume can fit on a post-it note. And her interviewer's like, well, to me, that shows loyalty, which is a good and a bad thing for Pam. So you see her also kind of having to take risks and grow beyond that cautious side. But she's a lot more friendly and focused on making connections than the wing 5. And some other examples of 6-wing 7s are Charles Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Cece from the show New Girl. And next we have the type 7, which is called the enthusiast, and their fear is being deprived of their needs being met or being trapped in pain, and they desire to be happy. So the type 7 is outgoing and social, they're versatile and optimistic. The type 7 wing 6 is called the entertainer, and my example is Alana Wexler from the show Broad City. So Alana is very playful and high energy. She doesn't do very well in an office job because she's kind of has her head up in the clouds and just is a very unique personality. So she's has to kind of find her own path. And you also see that variety that she wants in her romantic escapades and relationships, because she tries to have a monogamous relationship with Lincoln for a long time, but she just finds that she wants to have a variety of romantic and sexual experiences and just doesn't want to be tied down to one person for the rest of her life. But she also has that sixth wing in her that makes her a very loyal friend to Abby, and Abby's kind of her main bae, I guess you could say. I've never used that word before, but for them, like, she's super faithful in her relationship to Abby, even though sometimes she can seem irresponsible in other ways. But she makes up for that in kind of their beautiful friendship. Some other examples of 7 Wing 6 are Chandler Bing from Friends and Jake Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now the 7 Wing 8 is called The Realist, and my reference is Barney Stinson from How I Met Your Mother. So in contrast to the Wing 6, Barney is more materialistic and reaching for success, but part of that is he also wants a variety in life, and he wants to be able to take control. So the Wing 8 is often more entrepreneurial and multi-careering because they want to be having a versatile work life. And for Barney, we actually don't know what he does for most of the show for a career, but then we kind of find out that that's kind of part of his character, is him having this job where he's able to be awesome and do whatever he wants, and that fits the 7 lifestyle really well. He's also has that 7 kind of wandering eye and always going through an array of women until he finally learns how to commit and be responsible. And so that's kind of the journey that Barney is on. But he's also incredibly talented and charismatic and can talk people into anything. And next we have the type 8 personality, which is called the Challenger. And the Challenger fears being controlled, and they desire to have power over the course that they want to take in life. So the type 8 is usually very self-reliant and strong-willed. They're decisive and they're protective. The 8 Wing 7 is called the Independent, and my example is Jack Donaghy from the show 30 Rock. So as a Wing 7, he's a lot more charming and persuasive. He's more entrepreneurial and definitely committed to his work ambitions as the VP of their TV network. But he also has this really unique relationship with Liz Lemon, where he is a mentor to her, even though he's so conservative and she's liberal, but they're able to call each other out, and he's able to really help her to grow out of her complacency and to take more risks and to be more like the 8 in that way. But you also see him more of a wheeler dealer type personality in his career and doing whatever it takes to take charge in his work life. Some other examples of the 8 Wing 7 are Donna Meagle from Parks and Rec and Robin Schabotsky from How I Met Your Mother. Okay, so the type 8 Wing 9 is called the Bear, and my TV example is Nick Miller from the show New Girl. And the 8-9 is a lot more laid back and introverted. Like you see with Nick, they don't want to be around a lot of people, but they look for their tribe who they can do life with, and they're very protective of. And Nick definitely has that with his loft roommates. And he's also very self-reliant and tries to be resourceful, never lets plumbers or anyone come and repair the loft, and he just tries to jimmy rig it himself, even though he's not very skilled at it, which is part of that 8-9. And then for the first few seasons, he's not really reaching his potential as an 8. He's pretty discouraged and lazy, which isn't that characteristic of the 8-9, but what you see going on is that he's so afraid of being controlled that he just doesn't do anything. And he drops out of law school right before he's about to finish because he doesn't want to be working for someone else for the rest of his life. But as he begins to grow throughout the series, he does end up becoming a part owner of the bar that he bartended at for years, and then he has success with his novel series, the Pepperwood mystery novels, where he's able to have more independence and power over his career, which is a big driving force for the Wing 9. And last but not least, we have the Peacemaker, and they desire inner stability and harmony, and they fear loss or separation from others. So as the name suggests, they are very relaxed and easygoing. They are accepting and stable. So the 9-wing 8 is called the referee, and my TV example is Phil Dunphy from Modern Family. So Phil really fits that title of the referee because he's always trying to make everyone get along and be happy, even with his wife Claire, who's kind of a high-stress person. He's always just trying to help her to relax and to bring more serenity into their lives, and he is excelling in his work as a real estate agent. The Wing 8s often do really well in business where they're hands-on with people, like in consulting and HR. But you also see kind of him trying to diffuse stressful situations, and he works so hard at it, and even with trying to gain the approval of his father-in-law, Jay, he sometimes makes things more uncomfortable, but that's why we love him. And some other examples of 9-wing 8s are Jim Halpert from The Office, and also Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec. The 9-wing 1 is called the Dreamer, and my example is Liz Lemon from 30 Rock. So the Wing 1s are often more drawn to the arts, and so you see that with Liz Lemon in her script writing and TV sitcom writing. She would just prefer a no-drama life, just to sit at home and eat cereal, but she does try to push herself beyond her comfort zones, especially with the help of some of the characters in her life. But she really just prefers that more laid-back lifestyle. She still has a distinct sense of purpose in her writing and her idealism, even politically, but she's also just an even-keel person. But she can sometimes be passive-aggressive and stubborn, and when you see that side of her, she's gonna like dig her heels in and put up a fight, but most of the time she's just trying to enjoy the ride. So thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with my diagnosis of these characters? And let me know if there's different TV shows or characters that you would like me to say their Enneagram type.